For the last 4 months, a fragile truce has been in place between Ukraine forces and pro-Russian separatists fighting for independence in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions of eastern Ukraine. The so-called Minsk peace agreements went into effect last February. Since then, there has been sporadic fighting, but now the situation is threatening to spill out of control again. We begin with this report from CCTV's John Gilmore.
The guns are firing again in eastern Ukraine. Some of the worst fighting since a ceasefire was agreed to in February took place recently near the city of Donetsk. More than 20 were killed when pro-Russian separatist fighters battled with Ukrainian forces. President Petro Poroshenko blamed Moscow and warned his military that it needs to be on alert for a possible full-scale Russian invasion. Poroshenko said, quote, "The concentration of Russian troops near the state border is 1.5 times greater than a year ago." Russia denies that its troops are engaged in Ukraine, and Russian President Vladimir Putin insists he wants to see the peace deal agreed to in Minsk succeed. Putin criticizes Ukraine's government because, he says, it is failing to implement part of the agreement that calls for the rebel regions of Donetsk and Luhansk to win autonomy. In an interview published Saturday in an Italian newspaper, Putin said, quote, "The problem is that the current Kiev authorities don't even want to sit down to talks with them. Only our European and American partners can influence this situation." Some of those partners met over the weekend when leaders of the so-called G7 nations gathered in Germany. Ukraine was a top item on the agenda, with United States President Barack Obama again pushing for an extension of Western sanctions already in place against Russia. Meanwhile, the Kremlin accuses the Kiev government of provoking the new fighting in order to influence the European Union when it votes soon on whether or not the sanctions should be extended. More than 6,400 people have been killed in the eastern Ukraine conflict since it began about a year ago. John Gilmore, CCTV.